Okay, the next book I have I really like, and it's called The Rough-Faced Girl, and I just wanted to point out it's illustrated by David Shannon, who illustrates a lot of children's books, and he's a great illustrator. But you can see it's a Native American girl, and so this culture that's being represented is the Native American culture. So obviously set before colonialization and all of that. So, great pictures here. So this is a young girl who lives in an Indian village by the shores of Lake Toronto. And so it does a great job depicting, you know, what their villages look like. And so this girl that we see right here, she is Cinderella. She is the sister. Her mom has died, and dad has these other two sisters. Other two daughters who are mean to the rough-faced girl, and so she always has to keep the fire, so she's burned and scarred, and the other girls are always telling her you're so ugly, and, you know, making her keep the fire and get burned, and, you know, they never do, so they're pretty. So it goes through, and it shows the other girls getting dressed up in their gown, and so they're putting on, you know, these nice linens and beads and new moccasins, and they're going to talk to the invisible being. So there isn't really like a ball per se in the story, but it's kind of like this invisible being is always there, and maybe people are constantly trying to seek him out, and so they go to the teepee where the invisible being is, and they try to convince the sister, I'm here to marry your brother, the invisible being, and she's like, she asks them some questions, like, what does he look like, why are you here, that kind of thing, and they, of course, they answer the questions wrong, and she's like, you're banished, get away. So then they go back home. Cinderella decides she's going to go. So she asks her father for the same. And he says, I'm sorry, I've already given your sisters all of my nice things. So she says, that's okay, you know, I can deal with what you have. So he gives her his old moccasins and some shells that he has, and she does what she can with that. So she goes, and the sister greets her immediately, and this, like, you know, she sees through that, like, kind of rough exterior, and she's like, you're a beautiful person, you know. She asks her these questions about the invisible being, which, here's a great picture, which I think this whole story really does a great job of depicting Native American culture, because everything is about the earth and natural phenomenon, and so even this invisible being is being represented by natural things. So the birds and the rainbow and the clouds working together to create that picture. And so I feel like in this story, the invisible being's sister kind of works as the godmother, because she kind of makes sure that they're the ones that come together, and she sees the beauty in the Cinderella, even though she's not necessarily beautiful. And then in the end, she tells Cinderella to go bathe in the river, and then Cinderella becomes beautiful. And then the invisible being, or the prince, and Cinderella end up happily ever after. In the end, they get married, and they live forever. So, make sure we got everything. So we're in Native American culture before colonialization. The rough-faced girl, Cinderella, because she is treated like crap, and she she has that person looking out for her, and she ends up, you know, getting the guy. So the gown would be the linens, you know, because Native Americans, they just had animal hide, and so that's what they used to dress, and they wouldn't have had big ball gowns and things like that, and so it would be really special to have a fresh hide to wear, and then the beads and all those kinds of things. We know that they really hold that kind of stuff, you know, that's very special to them. And then of course we had the moccasins for the shoe, and that's kind of a big thing because a lot of Native Americans didn't even wear shoes, and if they did, they would maybe be like a piece of, you know, wood and strapped on. You know, moccasins were kind of the higher end design for a shoe. In this story, there's not really a clear stepmother. They just have the stepsisters. So that's kind of interesting. I don't know really why that would be. I think maybe I would need to look more into Native American culture. Maybe they didn't remarry. I'm not really sure why there isn't. Of course, the prince is the invisible being. He's the one that everybody's trying to pursue, and ultimately ends up being like that, like the win at the end. And so the magic, I think the magic stems from, you know, the land, which is perfect for Native American culture. I think that that's great. I think that really fits them. Fairy godmother, again, I think was the sister, kind of making sure that all those pieces come together like they're supposed to, and making sure that, you know, Cinderella ends up being beautiful and everything for her brother. And then again, there's not really like a ball. They're just kind of, women are constantly trying to pursue this figure that they've never seen, and Cinderella is the only one that's actually really seen him, so she ends up with him. And again, I really think that the illustrations in this book are amazing. They do a great job of depicting. I really like this picture of the teepee. Like, this is just what I think of when I think Native American. There's lots of pictures of the earth. Even the colors used are all earthy tones. Everything is using nature to represent what's going on in the story in some way. So, I think that covers everything.